Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Coaching for Millennials. I am your host, Jose Miguel Longo, and it is Thursday, friends. And that means we're talking about career coaching today. And this episode is coming to you very late in the day. It is actually 6:21. I am trying to get in the rhythm of recording content earlier and then publishing hopefully for the day that it needs to be published. Meaning like I don't want to be recording an episode that I'm supposed to drop the same day. But my days are so heavy and full because I have so many projects going on, which is great to be busy and having all the things that I have going on. But it's also hard when you want to prioritize a lot of things. And all my projects are doing this, which is great, but sometimes I need space in my day. And today was just one of those days where like I was consciously ready to record this morning and nothing that I could do could get me to actually sit here in front of the camera, in front of the computer to do that. Yes, I was in front of my computer for probably actually all night long, if I'm being honest. More on that later, but I just couldn't get it to record or get to record. And I also was having a little bit of imposter syndrome showing up, which should not be a surprise because, yes, I am a career and life coach and I practice emotional intelligence and I practice mindset and all those things. But having imposter syndrome sometimes sneaks up on you because we all have a saboteur that's lingering in front of us in a way that we ultimately don't know how to name it or is causing us from really being able to fully see the bigger picture or having that clarity. And the reason I'm saying this is because I could not for the life of me recall what I was planning on talking to for today's episode. And I feel like I've mentioned this quite a few times. Like, I have so much content, and I really do. Like, I have a whole library, but sometimes it doesn't resonate. Like, I could tell that people are tired and, haha, quote unquote, burnt out with what the burnout has been of the topics that we've been discussing. But when I do the research and I do the homework to find out what is top of mind for my audience and for millennials, burnout seems to be the top thing, honestly. And so I'm gonna put it to the side for now because I really do have lots of good stuff to peel back layers on. But for today's episode, here's what we're talking about. Your career identity is more than a job. And I did a search, and each time I did the search, this one kept coming back to me. It was really sitting in my core and my stomach. And for personal reasons, obviously, there's never anything that I don't share that doesn't have one way or another a connection to my life personally. But here's the catch to this episode and to the reason the title is what it is. It's why are millennials rewriting who they are outside their titles? And to kind of kick us off, I have a question. Starting today with a question, and it's an uncomfortable question. If your job title disappeared tomorrow, who would you be? Not what would you do, not how would you update your resume, not how would you explain it on LinkedIn, but who would you be? Let that sit with you for a second. Because somewhere along the way, especially millennials, we didn't just build careers, we built identities around them. And we don't just work in a marketing, we're marketers. We don't just manage teams, we're leaders. We don't just build companies, we are the title, the output, and the performer. And when work shifts, layoffs, pivots, promotions that don't feel fulfilling, if that doesn't feel like a professional adjustment, it then feels personal. I am a living proof of this. And it feels like an identity crisis. And that's what we're really unpacking here today. Now, before I kick us off into all the goodness, I will say bring your pen and paper because there is a lot here to uncover. Be prepared for golden nuggets because I'm going to drop them. Let's jump into my segment, what I'm liking, what I'm listening to, and what to look out for. What I'm liking. So I know on Tuesday I talked about the album Luck or Something um, by Hilary Duff. And today I'm talking about the same album, except in particular, a song on the album. Now, there are a lot of songs on this album that for me struck a chord from an emotional side. And I don't know if it's because I just have had a very exhausting long day, but I happened to be driving in the car on my way to go to Starbucks, and it was a distance. I took the long scenic route to get there because I was going from one part of town to another. And I was playing the full album. It's like 36 minutes long. So if you could sit for 36 minutes of a podcast episode, you could sit for 36 minutes of Hilary Duff singing her new album. Um, the song "Growing Up," and I'm gonna try to not get emotional. There's quite a few emotional songs on here. I listened to this album when it came out. I listened to this album probably all week long, and I keep listening to it because I'm one of those people who like consumes music to get the feels and the vibes, and I like to layer it and see what's happening in there. When I was listening to that song, I immediately had to send it to my best friend. And this is my best friend who her and I went to elementary school together. We went to junior high school together, and then we parted, ways because the universe did, not because we wanted to. When we graduated junior high school, I went to Dominican Republic and she stayed in New York, and we became pen pals and would use calling cards to talk to each other. Um, and we just have this relationship where no matter where we are in our lives, we can always pick up where we left off. And I have quite a few friends like that. Don't get me wrong. For those of you that listen to my podcast and who are those friends, you know who you are. But this one friend in particular knows me so well that that song made me really emotional. And I had to send it to her, and I sent her a voice note. And I was like, I'm trying not to cry right now. And then there was another song, which is We Don't Talk. And I know that Hilary Duff wrote this song about her sister. For me, this song strikes so many chords because of some relationships that I have with my family members. And even the song that she talks about, The Optimist, which is about her dad. And I'm not looking for a relationship with my father, but I'm looking for something to make me feel like I have people in my life that are not just my partner and my husband or my friends. And there's always this struggle, and I'm not sure if other people out there have the same situation in their lives. Obviously, Hilary Duff has 10 plus years of emotions that she's been keeping bottled up that she's not ready to share with us. I feel like I've had these emotions and feelings for a really long time. So let's keep moving along. But to be quite honest and clear, this is what I'm liking and this is what I'm listening to. And it has me feeling all the vibes. And if you're not a Hilary Duff fan, I suggest you just listen. And, if anything, bop to the music, bop to the sound. There are really good again, I said I think it's called bubble gum pop, but I just feel like the melodic tune and sound that this album has really is kind of giving vibes to her old music while also giving a curated version of an adult Hilary Duff. She's a mom, she's 38 years old, she's lived so much in her career and her life. And it's just beautiful to see that as a millennial, she has continued to evolve as a human. She hasn't let those characteristics that were a part of her young adult life define who she is, which is also a really important point in the conversation we're having. Because if you think back, Hilary Duff didn't want to be known for being Lizzie McGuire. That part of her identity was a part of who she was from the time that she was 9 years old. So I don't even know how old she was as a teenager. And she wanted so desperately to not be that. But that's what we know her as. So pivoting to, what this episode's really about is how do we fuse identity with achievement? you know, Millennials grew up in the follow your passion era, right? Everyone was telling us, follow your passion, do the thing that you like to do. And we're told to find the dream job, climb the ladder, make an impact, build something meaningful. And then social media showed up in a really loud and obnoxious way, right? Fucking Facebook hit us in the face. And I don't even remember what all the names were before Facebook, but obviously we had MySpace. Who remembers MySpace? Damn. Wow, that's really taking it back. And then suddenly your LinkedIn headline wasn't just a summary, it became a declaration of who you are. Your resume became proof of your worth. Your productivity became validation, and your title became your social currency. And without realizing, we've fused achievements with identity. When someone asks, tell me about yourself, what do you lead with? Right? I know every single person when I ask that question, I know what I want them to tell me. And they give me the answer that I don't want, which is about their job. It's their job, not our values, not our characters, not what makes us human. It's our job. And that's not a bad answer. It's definitely a powerful answer, but it's also so fragile that we have used a piece of who we are, but isn't the piece that really defines us as a human person, as a person, to say that that is who we are as identity. And because if your identity is tied to your role, what happens when your role changes? For me, this was hard. I think if I've ever talked about this on the show, it definitely was early, but I don't recall doing it. I think for me, when I had to make the pivot from being the director of career services, which I worked my ass off for 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's 9 fucking years in a space of a career field in an industry of higher education to get to that top role. It was a dream for me to do that job because I knew that I was hungry for it and it was the thing that I wanted most for success. That's how I defined my success for myself. It wasn't so much the title, it was the thing that I got to do that job. I was doing it very low budget, not making a lot of money for it, and with a very small team. It was a mighty team of 8 people, which included student workers, graduate students, and a full-time person. But let me tell you, that role defined my identity. That role absorbed my whole human core because I knew it was for me. Who I was, and I let it become me. And when I had to say goodbye to that job, I didn't know who I was anymore. I had to rebuild this person that's sitting here today to figure out what was next. Now, it's not to say that I didn't have other passions or things that made me who I am. The layers of my identity, right? When I say I'm a, gay Hispanic male, those are how I identify to other people when I need to say who I am. But when I talk about my career, I'm still figuring that shit out. Like, honestly, I really am. I left higher education in 2021 to go into tech. I worked in ed tech for 3 years. I pivoted into HR tech. And now I'm back in this solopreneur space, which don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore and love this work. Like I've said this before, if I can make the money that I would love to make doing podcasting as a full-time job and coaching and consulting, I would, but it is not easy to do that. And it requires a lot of grit. It requires a lot of time, and you have to build it up. It takes years. It takes years. Like, I've had to take breaks from the podcast because of jobs that I've had to take to make money. I've had to, put a lot of things on pause because the job became the priority because I needed the job to support the side hustle thing over here. I'm sure many of you have side hustles. We'll talk about that here in a second. So there's layers. There's layers to who we are as humans and the identities that we carry from our roles and the roles that we allow to define us as the humans that we are in this generation. So let's pivot here for a second when we talk about, if your identity is tied to your role, what happens when the role changes? There's something really unique that I don't know that's actually happening because it's out there in the universe per se. I just know that I've heard it enough for me to feel like, oh, this is something. And for lack of better words, this is a play on words. The quiet crisis millennials aren't posting about. It's a play on words, but I think this will track. Here's a part people are thinking about and not saying out loud. Sometimes you're not afraid of changing jobs. You're afraid of changing who you think you are. You're no longer the director. You're no longer the high performer. You're no longer the reliable one. You're no longer the founder. Then who are you? Right? Layoffs feel devastating, not just financially, but personally. Promotions can feel hollow because the title changed, but your intentional fulfillment didn't. Pivots feel terrifying because it feels like losing status. And many millennials are sitting quietly with this tension. If this role shifts, do I disappear with it? Do you? I don't think it's weakness. I think it's over identification. I was having a conversation with my barber yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Oh my God, my days are so blended. Clearly, I got a fresh cut. Thank you so much. Kay, shout out to you. With my barber yesterday, and they were mentioning to me that they found a groove in the work that they're doing, which is cutting hair. However, they feel like something is missing, like they need to really get their brain going, like they need more. And they recognize that that thing that they do that's making them the money in their day job isn't the thing that they want to be doing to always only make their money. Looking for another layer or thing that helps them feel connected, right? So how do we differentiate career identity versus our core identity? Let's separate these things clearly because if we're stuck in what our career identity looks like, then you need to really take a step back and define who you are at your core. So let's do this. You have a career identity and you have a core identity. Here's what your career identity includes. It's your title, your salary, your industry, your company, your responsibilities, and your output. Now, your core identity, these are your values, your strengths, your characters, your emotional intelligence, your curiosity, your leadership, and your resilience. Your job is an expression of you, it is not your entirety. So when you over identify with your career identity, you become a fragile change. So you don't really know how to make that jump over, right? It becomes hard for you. When you root yourself in your core identity, you become adaptable. Do you see the difference? Let me tell you again. When you over identify with your career identity, you become fragile to change. When you root yourself in your core identity, you become adaptable. Now, which one would you want to be? Because I want to be adaptable. It took me years to be okay with the fact that I left a career that was very fulfilling for me And I made decisions to leave it. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't because like, oh, this is like the next thing for me. I'm still struggling with what my identity is in my career right now. But I became adaptable because I pivoted to what other things can make me money and I can work in. I have podcasting gigs, I have coaching gigs, I have consulting gigs. I'm creating new podcasts, I'm creating new coaching products. There's so many layers to that, right? But those are not necessarily um, the career ones. I think that they're part of my core because they're who I'm defining. I'm working as my person in working with my generation and serving in that way. Now, am I trying to make a career out of this? Fuck yes, I am. Why wouldn't I want to? That's what the side hustle is about. How do you work in something that fulfills you? But at the end of the day, it doesn't define me. Now, there is an intensity here that we have to differentiate. And this may hit people in certain ways. So if it's bringing up something, then you need to talk it out. Honestly, I think it's really important. And I know that this particular episode may hit people in different ways. So, why this is intensified for millennials is because it's very deep for a few reasons. We were encouraged to build personal brands. We were told to merge our passions with our professions. We watched a hustle culture glorified overwork. Oh, yeah, that's very true. We saw LinkedIn become performance theater. And now we're navigating an AI shift. We're seeing layoffs. We're seeing non-linear career paths. We're seeing mid-career pivots. So when work changes, it feels destabilizing because we built so much of ourselves around it. Our parents work jobs, we built identities, and that's the distinction that matters. So let's bring this into a coaching phase right now for you. And I call this the coaching recalibration. If your job title disappeared tomorrow, what would remain? Your empathy, your strategic thinking, your ability to lead conversations, your creativity, your discipline, your humor. Those things don't disappear with payroll. They're called transferable, they're called portable, and they are you. Here are a few reflection questions to sit with you for the week, and we can come back to these in next Thursday's episode. Who am I without my job title? What do people consistently thank me for outside of work? What value guides my decisions? What energizes me that isn't tied to income? Because your career is something you do, it's not who you are. And when you separate those two, something powerful happens. You stop clinging to the roles that no longer fit. You stop spiraling when change happens. And you start adapting. What is this called? Take a wild guess. Emotional intelligence. Now, a career pivot doesn't erase you. A layoff doesn't erase you. A promotion doesn't define you. It simply changes the vehicle. But the driver is still you. Your career is a vehicle, not your identity. So at this moment, you detach those two. You don't feel lost when work shifts. You feel capable of navigating. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear from you. For me, I've had so many career identities that have really defined who I am. This idea of career, I've become obsessed with talking about it, teaching about it, coaching about it. Many of my clients are going through career pivots right now, and they're mid career professionals. It is a transformation that I think the millennial generation didn't see coming. I think it is something that a lot of people that I've had conversations with who are friends and not yet clients, and hopefully they will become clients, who are struggling with who they are and how they transition from what they've known in a space of work and what they've known for what they're doing. And I think it's deeply impacting them because they don't know how to distinguish the two. they don't know how to create the identifiers that makes them see that it's just a part of you, but it's not who you are. I have a client that I've been working with for quite a few years, and they didn't initially come to me for career advice. It was life coaching advice. And a lot of the changes that I've gotten in this person's life have pivoted into some career changes, which has been the primary focus of the coaching more so lately. And they're really uncovering a part of themselves that they didn't know that existed. And part of it was because they connected the identity of what they took for so much of their, young adult life to now becoming the full fledged adult that they are today and made that their full fledged identity. They never took the time to sit down and reflect on the parts of who they are, where their value comes in, where their strengths come in. They're starting to learn how they can separate the two and really compartmentalize them for good reasons. Again, remember, you're the driver, your career is the vehicle. So you can drive it where you want it to go. So I think this episode hopefully is a wake up call for people who are struggling. And if, I just want it to be heard because I know it's needed right now. I know that it's essential. I think people are not talking about this, but they're thinking about it in their head. And if they are talking about it, they're not talking about it enough. And maybe they're just too scared. So, again, if this resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message, leave me a comment, share this with someone who is quietly navigating a transition. And if you're realizing your identity and your career have been tangled together for a while, let's untangle it. I'm here for you. Something I want to mention before I close this episode out, I'm going through some uh, how do I call it? Well, I shut down my landing page, which was showing all of my products and services for people to connect with me. And for good reasons. I'm moving to another platform that I'm currently building, and it didn't make sense for me to keep that tool open where I wasn't getting as much traction and a lot of people were coming to me directly to my inbox. So if you were looking to schedule a consulting session or looking to schedule a coaching session or looking to find out more about coaching packages or want to get access to some of my free tools and resources, feel free to reach out to me at hello@coachingwithjosemiguel.com. Find me on Instagram at coaching for millennials or at Jose Miguel Longo. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I know that I said, let's not let LinkedIn define us, but let's be real here. That's how you make connections and you curate some amazing relationships. LinkedIn, I'm at Jose Miguel Longo, or you can search for coaching for millennials. And yeah, I just hope that this episode really gets the attention that it needs because even myself, I'm almost certain I've talked about this before, but even myself now saying it out loud and how I ran through all my notes of the things that I wanted to really bring to attention here, it just hits home differently today than it probably did a couple of years ago. And I think for me, it hits home differently because I have a little bit more emotional intelligence that I've developed in understanding and being able to change and separate the things and having more forgiveness and grace with myself and more acceptance. And that's something that takes time. That's something that took resilience for me to do. Took me a lot of reflecting inwardly to say, you know what, it's okay that I've gotten laid off before. It's okay that I'm no longer in the job that I, thought was the title that I wanted to be in. It's okay that I'm not in, part of a big team. Those are things that I had to process and it took time, but also I had to do the work. And I did a lot of it alone. Yeah, I have a therapist, but not the same when you're the one that's sitting alone with yourself. So I'm here to say you don't have to do it alone. I have spent so much of my career for the last almost 2 decades, which is crazy to say out loud, doing this work with people. And it's what I'm so passionate about. It's my life's work. It's not the job. That's why it's so different for me. It's this will always be a part of me no matter what job I have. And it's why I continue to believe in what the message that I bring to this podcast, week after week, episode after episode. So without further ado, enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you in the next episode on Tuesday. Thanks so much for listening. I'll catch you later. Peace and love. Bye.